Hello, you're listening to Count Richard von Coudenhove Kalergi. Today is Friday, January the 18th, and here's a couple of comments since my last video. And I'd like to start with a quote from President Trump. The simple fact is, if you are willing to break a country's laws to get in, you are probably willing to break them again once you are in. I think it's going to be an interesting year between him and Pelosi, and I see that he actually stopped her plane from leaving America, citing grounds that she may be needed for discussion regarding opening up of government facilities, and took a swipe at her, saying that if she was prepared to travel by private means, i.e. pay for it herself, she was more than happy to let her go. I think it's going to be an interesting year watching those two. Charlie Flanagan take note about the quote. Last year the BBC took issue with a claim by an Alternative for Deutschland MP who said that there were 447 killings by illegal migrants in Germany in 2017. And the BBC had to admit that migrants were overrepresented in most serious crimes, with asylum seekers and illegal migrants making up just 2% of the population. They made up 8.5% of all criminal suspects, 10.4% of all murder suspects, and 11.9% of all sexual offences. This reluctantly admitted by the BBC. In Germany, in a town called Bad Kreuznach, a 25-year-old Afghan asylum seeker has stabbed multiple times a 25-year-old pregnant Polish woman in hospital after an altercation, and her baby suffered such serious injuries that it died during emergency surgery. The woman is not yet in a position to be interviewed, but suspect fled the hospital but surrendered himself to the police later. He had been arrested for murder, aggravated assault, and unlawful termination of a pregnancy. In Finland, 79,000 citizens have signed a citizens' initiative calling on the government to withdraw asylum rights and permits to those found guilty of sex crimes. This comes after police in Oulu, a northwestern Finnish city, has opened a new probe following last month's child abuse allegations into 4 new offences against girls aged between 10 and 15 years old. The Finnish Prime Minister, Julia Sipilä, has said he felt a deep sense of disgust and fully understands there is shock and concerns amongst members of the public who suffered as a result of these reprehensible acts. This just days after the Prime Minister used his New Year Day message to warn citizens that disseminating hate speech was a crime. A total of 16 men from North Africa and the Middle East are suspected of sexually abusing minors. On Saturday, 5 foreign-born suspects have been detained in Helsinki, giving fears that the grooming gangs had spread. Katie Hopkins has posted 2 videos about this, one where she interviewed the mayor of Oulu, and the other a journalist from one of Finland's leading newspapers. This comes in the wake of news that another 55 men in West Yorkshire have been arrested in connection with alleged child abuse. In Austria, a 19-year-old Syrian asylum seeker who entered Austria in 2014 under the family reunification programme to be with his father has admitted to the murder of a 16-year-old girl in the city of Werner, Neustadt. The girl, whose body was found in the city centre park, underneath a pile of leaves by her mother. Could you imagine that? He was already known to police for 2 cases of grievous bodily harm and was due to be relocated, but the relocation was cancelled as he was under 18 years old at the time. In domestic issues, I attended last Saturday's Yellow Vest demonstration. I arrived shortly before 2 p.m. and was delighted to meet with Critiqued and another very nice man called Oz. We walked together for about an hour and 50 minutes before I had to head off due to other issues. I'd been talking to 2 other lads that held up signs regarding carbon tax, and as I'm a bit of a sceptic, I engaged in pleasant chat. I mentioned that the Vostok ice core samples dating back 420,000 years in Antarctica, which can prove that the Earth has regularly been warmer than it is now, and that an increase in CO2 levels actually follows heat, not the other way around. I also mentioned that there are 300 million cubic miles of water in the ocean. Extraordinary figure. As I had to leave the march, I didn't get a chance to hear Critique speak, but I did see the video and thought he made 3 excellent points and spoke very well. In total there was about between 50 to 70 people, with some leaving and others joining en route as we marched. There was only about 4 Antifa with their refugees welcome signs, and their presence made no impression on our march. There were no people before profit or Sinn Féin supporters there. And Gran Torino had a live stream with Justin Barrett, and the Don and Critiqued were on last Saturday. Gemma O'Doherty had an interesting one last week where her live stream was actually, she did a stream on Friday and was to do another one on Saturday, but she had a suspension issued from YouTube, which I'm delighted to see has actually now been overturned. Last Sunday also saw a demonstration in Rooskey outside the Shannon Key West Hotel, which had the usual Homes for Everyone and Refugees Welcome suspects singing their Kumbaya songs. One of the speakers at this event was a Turk called Mehmet Ulang, who headed a group called United Against Racism, an organisation that probably gets funding from the state or from George Soros, and in his speech he referred to Peter Casey as a bastard. This said while standing beside a sign saying no to hate speech. How about that? It was interesting to note that RTE did a report on this, and they said that the majority of those that attended were not from the area, as most of the people of Rooskey had attended Mass and had then travelled on to a football match afterwards. A film of this gathering was put up on YouTube, and the general idea put out by this group was that the fire was racially motivated. What a leap of judgment. I sent the video of Peter Casey being called a bastard into the Niall Boylan show and asked him would he discuss it. Can we not have a conversation on migration into Ireland without being called a racist? I also made contact with the Roscommon TD, Michael Fitzmaurice, and spoke to him about, and I felt that this group did not represent the town. I asked him how many of the locals had turned up, and he said only about 4. I asked him did he know that Peter Casey was called a bastard, and he said that he didn't, so I sent him a copy of the video by email. I also sent a video of it to Herman Kelly and suggested to him that he pass it on to Peter Casey if he was not aware of it. This week also saw the jailing of Ben Gilroy over failure to do 80 hours community service following a previous arrest. I wonder, is that why one of his demands of allowing filming inside court to be allowed? He had recently done a live stream with both Gemma O'Doherty and Gran Torino with directions. A girl from South County Dublin has been sexually assaulted last Thursday week, but with the information of the assault only being revealed this week. She was followed by a man for 2 kilometres in the evening at 7 p.m. before he masturbated over the back of her clothes. Gardaí are following a definite line of inquiry. The girl herself believes that her attacker is a man who had previously had 34 previous convictions, including indecency, burglary, and an assault on a woman where he got a suspended sentence. What kind of justice system has this kind of person walking around? It has also been revealed that 8,000 crimes committed by 3,500 youths, including rapes, have gone unpunished. I wonder how many of them were committed by foreign nationals. Charlie Flanagan, take note. Tomorrow is actually the 19th of January, which, interesting enough, was the start of the War of Independence, with Dan Breen attacking an ammunition and a few, I think 3 RAC men were killed in the attack. It was also the day that the first sitting of the Dáil of the provisional Sinn Féin government sat, and I wonder what the original Sinn Féin would think with the Sinn Féin that we have around here now. Just to mention, I read Dan Breen's book. It's called My Fight for Irish Freedom, and it's an excellent read. And I think tomorrow there's an event taking place called the Turning of the Seal, which is performed by the head of the IRB, which is a man called Billy Maguire. And it's from that ceremony the institutions of the state get their power. And interestingly enough, there is always a member of the Indian government at that ceremony, because back in 1916 the fourth, a man from India who turned out to be the fourth Prime Minister of India, V.V. Singh, was actually a member of Sinn Féin and was deported from the country and thrown out of the College of Surgeons because of his membership. I notice I have 1 or 2 subscribers this week. Thanks very much for subscribing, and please comment under my video. And so there are my thoughts, which are my own. Thanks for listening, and bye bye.